Staples on 3. Everybody in the world of college football is excited today. Everybody. Because we've seen the cover of the new EA Sports College Football game. Remember, we've been waiting for this game for 11 years. We've seen the cover. We have a release date. We have a price point. We have a bundling of packages, different how ways to buy it. I'm told later today we're going to get even more. We're going to get some moving video. We're going to get some gameplay. We're going to get the trailer. It is going to be a very exciting day for those of us who love college football because, and look, I get this. Like you guys are giving EA Sports so much free advertising here. I get it. But every time I covered one of these trials that kind of reshaped college sports as we know it, the first question anybody would ask me is, when do we get the game back? And we actually know when we're getting the game back. That the day is July 19th, unless you want to buy the deluxe edition or the bundle with Madden. And then that day is July 16th. So if my son would like to know when I am stealing his PlayStation, that's the day. Probably the night before. Got to get it set up in my office. Probably a decent download time here. But that's the day. It's Friday. We decided to run back what we did last Friday because it was so much fun. It's a Phillip Dukes Friday. You know him. You love him. Dukes the Scoop. Host of the 5-Star Flex on the On3 Recruits channel. If you're not already subscribed, if you're not hitting that like button, hitting that thumbs up every single time you see this man's face on your screen, you're doing it wrong. What's up, Dukes?
Andy, what's up, man? How you doing?
I am happy. I am happy because I have been waiting for this video. So I'm old. We've established this. You and I talked about this last week. We're both old. And so I was among the first people playing the EA Sports College Football game. Like it came out when we were in college, late high school, in college. And like I remember in my apartment in college having tournaments that would last all night. Like I would play as South Carolina. They had just added the option pitch on the trigger button. So Anthony Wright, who was a really good runner, okay passer, was great running the option. Right. Not in real life. Probably could have been in real life, but I'm sure he didn't want to do it in real life. But he was great on the game doing it. So I am so excited about what it's going to look like when I am having General Booty pilot the ULM Warhawks to a national title.
Man, you know, the biggest thing for me is like, I started out on the PlayStation 2. And so back then, Texas was the squad, right? Then, and so the way that I used to play that option pitch was with Quentin Jammer. His tackling ability on that game was so crazy. Okay, so then I got into when we went Gen 3. I saw that development. I saw how much the game changed in like 2009. West Virginia was my squad. I'm going crazy. Pat White, Steve Slayton, and now what interests me the most is to see NCAA football almost skip a generation for me and go straight to P5, PlayStation 5, or I think the Xbox is the Xbox, whatever the newest Xbox is.
The new Xbox, yeah, and it's not going to be on PC. Right. If you don't know who Matt Brown is, Matt's a guy who worked for SB Nation. He now covers. He does a newsletter. He covers the business of college sports. So he's normally talking about like realignment or how they pay the players, but he got. Because he's really good at sending out Freedom of Information Act requests, he got tons of information about this game early on because he was like, okay, send me copies of whatever assets you sent to EA Sports. And then he's been doing this for a couple of years. So like when they sent, here's our fight song and here's a recording of it, he'd get the answer to his request would say, okay, Texas has sent the fight song to EA Sports. So he kind of all along has been telling us what's going to happen. And yeah, he's been on this for a while, but he asked why it's not going to be on PC. And apparently it's so much kind of continuous maintenance if you're going to have it on PC. So that's why it'll be on PlayStation. It'll be on Xbox. And I realize, Dukes, there's probably a portion of the audience that's like, who cares about this? But this is I don't know. I think it's probably over 75% of the audience of this show is going to buy this game and play this game.
Yeah, easily. And then for the new college football fans who came up, who haven't had the opportunity to play this game, you got to think this game hasn't been out since 2014. My son was born in 2013. From the time he started playing video games, he's always wanted to play a college football game.
Mm-hmm.
He has been over the moon about this information. If he's having a bad day or not the best day, all I have to do is show him this cover and say this summer, and he perks up instantly. So I don't, even for us, the nostalgia factor for the older guys, but I think it's doubly as important for the younger guys who haven't even had the chance to experience those all-night games of NCAA football.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is, like, so my son's 14. He's been playing Madden for a while, and like he's an August birthday, so he gets Madden every year on his birthday. It's just part of the deal, and he loves playing Madden, but he lives in a college town in the South. Like, college football is way bigger where we live than the NFL, and it's all anybody talks about at his school. It's all he and the boys talk about. Like, they talk about NFL too, but they talk a lot more about college football. So like when they get a chance to play as these guys, when they get a chance to play, like, so we live in Gainesville. So all these boys want to play as the Gators. They want to be the ones that bring the Gators back to championship level. And I'm sure it's the same thing if you live in Birmingham, if you live in Jackson, Mississippi, if you live in Atlanta. Like, that's what you want to do. You have your team and you want to bring that team to glory yourself. But that's the thing I like about it, and maybe because this is what I've been writing about the whole time and pushing for the whole time. Like, I always hated it. I knew that was Pat White, but it wasn't really Pat White. Like,
Yeah,
it will be Travis Hunter. Like, when you're playing as Colorado, that's Travis Hunter.
Awesome. And think about it, like, the only time we really had to go through that in our generation outside of the college football game was to create a player, Jordan 99. And you knew it was Jordan, but it never felt the same when you dunked with 99 on the Bulls. And it's the same thing for college football. It just didn't feel the same. We knew, but let's say you were playing more of a novice player who may not have known who your star player was that you found. There may be a third string guy on the bench that you find that absolutely, like, wreaks havoc for you, but all he gets to be for that guy who doesn't know him is player 14. Well, now those guys get the notoriety for being guys who may not be the major guys in college football, but now when they see a specific skill set, stuff like what I like to do, I go through every roster and find the fastest guy. I always want to find the fastest running back, and I always want to find the fastest receiver. That creates notoriety for these guys, and I think it's way overdue. It's just an exciting time, especially when you think about college football junkies like us.
Anthony Schwartz would have been unstoppable in this game.
Schwartz would have been insane.
That's the thing. Like, guys who are better in the game than maybe in real life, like, they are going to become somebody's favorite player. And it might be some kid who lives in New Mexico might have an Auburn guy as his favorite player because that's the guy he dominates with. And, you know, we all remember, like, I'm old enough to remember Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl, like the unstoppable Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl. But it's so niche in college. Like, you'll find some, like you said, you'll go through the rosters and you're just looking for 99 speed. Mm-hmm. And there will be guys with 99 speed, and you're going to try them out. And there's going to be one, like, there'll be one guy, and the first time you run like an end around jet sweep with him, you're going to score, and you're like, that's my guy.
Right.
And it won't matter if he gets tackled for a 4-yard loss every other time because he scored on the first play. That's your guy.
Absolutely. You need that one. And I think, too, for guys, like, we don't watch a lot of West Coast football. So I think a really good player that's going to kind of pop in this game is going to be Jaden Ott from Cal.
Yes.
I think, like in this game is built for him. He breaks a lot of tackles. He can get to his top speed fast. He can catch the ball. He's one of those guys that you could take your offense. And I wish Sam Jackson would have still been there, the quarterback from last year from Cal who transferred to Auburn as a wide receiver. Yep. He's playing wide receiver at Auburn. So what do you think he would have done on the game as a quarterback, having that type of speed? That's one missed opportunity from last year to be able to get that Sam Jackson, Jaden Knott backfield on this game.
Well, here's what. How about this one?
Okay.
You get Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the question, and this is what I know that EA Sports team is thorough, and I know the people who make the game are big college football fans, so they're into this stuff. But like, is the speed on Avery Johnson going to be accurate? Because if the speed on Avery Johnson is going to be accurate, K-State may be a lot of people's favorite team.
Yeah, I think so. And the video game portion of NCAA, when you compare it to Madden, NCAA always played faster than Madden. So if you've got those two in the backfield, the only way to neutralize them is going to be to go get you got to play with LSU and then just and run with Perkins, take Perkins off the line, run them around in a bunch of space, and just go get Johnson. That's kind of how you're going to have to play it, especially like when people start to, like, video game terms, start cheesing the option when you got fast guys like that. You basically got to have a team where they can start where you have a guy, because I think Perkins has got to be at least a 90, 91 speed on this game. I mean, he's got to be.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, you just reminded me of something, though. If Brian Kelly thought it was bad last year with people criticizing the way that LSU was using Harold Perkins,
oh my God,
imagine now it's going to be like 2 million coaches, 2 million defensive coordinators using Harold Perkins one way, and then real Harold Perkins will be used a different way, and they will go insane.
Oh, it's going to be ridiculous. Like, can you imagine the message boards? Like, I love the site Message Board Geniuses, where they take like crazy takes from message boards. So can you imagine somebody saying, look at these stats from Harold Perkins last year. He had 94 sacks in 10 games. And you mean to tell me he can't get so I think this with and that's the beauty of it. Because now everybody, you get to talk about what you like to do, but now you get to actually do it. And like you said, I think that's a really interesting point, because you're going to create more and more coaches. Some of these coaches will be 8 years old, some of them will be 80, but everybody's going to have their opinion and know what and my system works, right? Everybody's going to say my system works. Run the 4-4.
Well, I think we're 4-4. And obviously kids been playing Madden. The playbooks are pretty elaborate. Like, my kid can ID a cover 2 or a cover 3, whereas if you'd asked me when I was a kid, like even when I was playing football in high school, I didn't give a crap what the secondary was doing. Like, it didn't matter to me. This guy in front of me, I got to block him. That's it. But now kids have a more global view of scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. My son, so we always talk about when to run crossers, right? And why would you run crossers against zone? And then he'll come back and tell me, well, Dad, it just works right here. You just got to wait till he runs out of his zone and hit him right here. And this guy has the accuracy to throw it here. You just got to have a guy with a strong enough arm. He loves to run crossers with Josh Allen. Me having this conversation with my 10-year-old just shows you where we are. When I was 10 years old, every offense in Little League was wing T or wishbone, 3 downs in a cloud of dust. We threw the ball on 4th down every time when we didn't get enough yards. That's it. So now when you think about how much the game has evolved, especially this portion of it, and not to get off subject, but the amount of training young players go through at this age, you can just go on Instagram and you can go see a bunch of 10-year-olds doing all types of crazy drills, one-hand catches, backpedaling in a very fluid motion, opening up their hips. This is stuff I didn't learn until I got to be 14, 15. So I think now the games, there's a very, very high chance that we may play online and get spanked by somebody who's not even in 5th grade.
And that 5th grader might become the next like big coach when he's 40. Like,
absolutely.
That's the craziest part. All right, we got to figure out, will there be any 99 overalls in this game? So like the mid 2000s, there was a run of a lot of 99 overalls. Then they dialed it back. I think Andrew Luck was one of the last 99 overalls when he was at Stanford, but not a lot. Do we think there will be any 99 overalls in this game?
So mine was, I think you got to go with Travis Hunter, just because he's going to have, you have to fill out his attributes on offense as well. So even if
Correct.
he's not a 99 corner, he may be let's say he's a 96 corner and a 92 receiver. What if you look at how many of his attributes that are going to be filled in, because usually when you've got offensive awareness, defensive awareness, you got your catching ability, you got route running ability. A lot of defensive backs aren't going to have route running ability in the 80s. So with with the sheer amount of attributes that you have to kind of set a value for a player like Travis Hunter, I think he's got to be a 99.
I think that's the most likely candidate, and he's on the cover. Like,
oh yeah,
because it's him, Quinn Ewers, and Donovan Edwards. Quinn Ewers is not going to be a 99 overall. Donovan Edwards definitely not going to be a 99 overall. The only other guys I can think of that you might do 99 overall, because you're not going to have everybody complaining. Like, if you do another quarterback, if you do a quarterback, everybody's going, why didn't my quarterback get 99 overall? What would you know? Although, if you're EA Sports, I think they like that discourse. They like the complaining. But I think if you go 99 overall with any of the guys playing this year, it's going to be alignment. It could be Kelvin Banks, who's Quinn Ewers' left tackle. It could be Will Campbell, the left tackle at LSU. Maybe one of the 2D tackles at Michigan, either Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant. The other guy I was thinking of, Dukes, and it's positional versatility that leads me to this, which is why I think he might be the most likely D lineman to get it, is Deion Walker at Kentucky. Because Deion Walker's 350 pounds and can rush off the edge. Like, he can play every position on the D line, which, like you said with Travis Hunter, you have to account for so many different attributes. Well, Deion Walker, you're going to have your typical inside D lineman attributes, but he can do all the edge things that most people want. Now, is he the best edge rusher in the country? No, but he's a legit SEC edge rusher at that size, along with being what he can be up the middle. I think that's the one I would go with if I'm going to pick anybody for a 99 overall.
Yeah, I think especially if you got stamina off, right?
Yep.
If you play, exactly. if you take stamina out of it, he's definitely one of those guys. There's a guy I like at Tennessee. I'm gonna say, and I got him for later on in the show, but James Pierce Jr. I think he has a very, very, very video-like game. Freak of nature when you talk about how he looks athletically, how fast he is, the bend that he gets off, and his motor. I could see that playing into him being almost unblockable in this game. He had 10 sacks last year. I mean, from everything that I've been getting out of Tennessee, they say he's everything that people think he is, and he's filled out a little bit more. Looks like a creative player. So, yeah, I think I would venture to say he's probably the top returning dedicated edge rusher, defensive lineman in the SEC. So I maybe not 99, but I think he could be close.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I remember at their game against Alabama last year, watching him against Caden Proctor. Now, Caden Proctor got much better as the season went on, but James Pierce was just abusing him, and there was nothing he could do. And you watched other Tennessee games where it was the same thing. It's like you just have to devote so many resources to slowing down James Pierce, and it helps everybody else on that. Now we'll see how the rest. That's a deep defensive line. They feel comfortable rolling, too deep through. Tyler Barron's not there anymore, but they feel comfortable replacing him. So I do think that's a good choice right there, because you're right. He's probably better this year. He very well could be the number one pick in the draft next year. So it's a good one. I can't wait. I just cannot wait to see this, because it's been 11 years. And the reason the game went away is EA Sports was like, we'd like to pay the players so we could use them in the game. And the NCAA is like, we're not going to let you do that. And EA Sports was getting sued at the time. They were one of the original defendants in the O'Bannon suit. And they settled it quickly. They're like, hey, we get it. We should have been paying you guys. And
absolutely.
Did
you get one of those checks from the class action suit?
I actually could have. I did not, because I was on a roster of what was an all-time team, the 96 Gators. But I was like, no, because they don't put third stringers in the game. So, and I was like a ninth stringer. So I like, it only goes too deep. I was like, let's let the people who are actually good get the check for that, because it wasn't a huge check, but yeah, it would have been like everybody who appeared on a roster was eligible. So Willie in the chat, last year, Torrey Taylor, the Iowa punter, would have been a 99, 100%. A 99 punter. Make your dream points out. Taylor Mays was a 99, the USC safety. Like, Dukes, can you imagine Taylor Mays showing up at a football practice now and people are like, what position you play? Safety. No, you don't.
Man, you know what? I'm definitely a speed guy. And seeing when he ran that 40 at the combine, I was like, he's the best safety of all time. And I absolutely believe that. And when Pete Carroll drafted Earl Thomas instead of him, I said, okay, there's got to be something going on here, because Pete Carroll had just left Southern Cal and he drafted Earl Thomas instead. And I know for a fact that this kid, Taylor Mays, had to be like, man, coach, what's going on? But clearly Pete knew what he was doing.
I was going to say, Earl Thomas's NFL career tells us that Pete made the right choice there. Right. But you're right. Like, yeah, Taylor Mays was a just freak of nature. He was like a 240-pound safety who could fly. And like today, I think we'd have him coming off the edge.
Yeah,
I think we like he would have moved a linebacker in like 2016, and then now he'd be an edge guy.
He can 1,000% be an edge guy. And it's just funny how, based on when you're born, kind of determines your future. Like, there are a lot of basketball players now who would have been football players before, or vice versa. There are a lot of football players who probably would have been playing a different sport. And even if you look at baseball, your center fielder, the old center fielder, is playing slot receiver now. Like, guys just aren't playing baseball at the same rate they used to be. So yeah, I think generation and basically when you're born has a lot to do with your positional
like Charles Barkley wouldn't get drafted into the NBA right now. Now, he was an athletic freak,
right?
But he wouldn't get drafted in the NBA because he's a 6'4" power forward. Like,
right. He doesn't get that.
Fours aren't that anymore. Fours have to be like 6'9" and above and have to be able to shoot and handle.
You got to have a handle. Like, and that's the prototype. These guys would have been centers years ago. Like, there's no way that they would have allow these guys to play on the perimeter as much as they do. And I just think it's crazy, because even these guys playing on the perimeter, well, that forces a lot of point guards who are 5'10", 5'11" back onto the football field. So your generation that you're born in has a lot to do with how successful you are based on where the game is.
Well, and exactly. And I've said this for several years. I think basketball is pushing more tight ends into football because there's no place in college anymore either. Like, you can't get a Division I scholarship as a 6'5" power forward. Like, every team used to have that 6'5", 260-pound dude who was kind of an enforcer down low. That doesn't exist in major college basketball anymore. Like, DJ Burns is center, but like, you don't see guys that look like that playing major college basketball. Like Jay Crowder, who is in the NBA right now. Mo Alley Cox played at VCU, and now he's in the NFL. But like, those two guys, you're not going to see many of those in basketball. Like, all of those guys are going to get pushed to football in high school.
Yeah, I mean, like, and even now when you see a guy like Joe Alt, right?
Yeah,
you think about that. Man, is that Udonis Haslem today? Like, now you have this.
UD. So I was in college when UD was at Florida. Like,
right.
And UD was heavier. Like, he had to change his body to play in the NBA. He lost like 60 pounds to play in the NBA. But UD was a 6'6", 270-pound post player.
Right.
That just that doesn't exist now.
No, that day is over and done with.
Yeah. So, all right. Speaking of the day that's over and done, I'm glad we ventured into the NBA talk, because you sent me this last night and I agreed wholeheartedly. So you sent me a tweet from Sam Quinn from CBS, who said, NBA nicknames have gotten so lazy. Jokic is Joker. How original. Dude barely smiles. Anthony Edwards becomes Ant. Now, as we know, he was Ant-Man when he was playing Pee Wee football in Atlanta. But that's his thing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is SGA. I could go on. What happened to Chocolate Thunder, the round mound of rebound? We used to be a country. And so you said, look, we got to find we got to make some nicknames for these college football players because there really aren't a lot of good ones. Like, what was the last truly great nick? Johnny Football was okay. The fact that Johnny Football is a shortened version of what it started as on the message boards, it was actually JFF, Johnny something football. I think the Honey Badger was the last truly great nickname in college football, though.
Yeah. What was the quarterback? Oh, Kenny Trill was pretty good too, right?
Oh, Kenny Trill was great.
Yeah,
Who's now quarterback coach? Kenny Hill. So,
oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he was. He actually joined Gary Patterson's staff at TCU after he finished playing. So, and now he's in the coaching ranks. But yeah, so we were talking about, you and I were going back and forth last night about some of these dudes this year. Because like, if Quinn Ewers had kept the mullet, there were ways you could have called him the mechanic, because he does look like I sent a tweet out. I think it was during the Texas-Oklahoma game a couple of years ago. I said Quinn Ewers looks like that guy in every small southern town who can get you a really good deal on a used Camaro hood. So you know that guy, right? You met that guy.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, like, you're right. The Honey Badger probably was like the best one of all of them, because that's like when Honey Badger Mania was going crazy on YouTube, right? They got the video. Oh. There's the guy who's saying the Honey Badger doesn't give a what when he's commentating the Honey Badger, and that was like gold. I think now, like, yeah, it's, and people don't take the time to even do it because there's so much going on. We're so overstimulated with information. Like, we don't just have to sit down and kind of fixate on the guy, but like, we talk about him so much that we come with the nickname because it leads us to think that we're on to the next. But the hefty lefty round mound of touchdown. Yes, Jared Lorenzen. God bless
wait, there's one more. The Pillsbury throw boy.
No, that is gold. That makes college football.
Rest in peace, Jared Lorenzen.
God bless him, man. Golly, that was a good one. I never got that. Like, I was almost like, I used to see him and I was like, man, that dude is big. And I never thought that he would have made it as long as an NFL as he did. Like, a lot of people didn't realize he had an okay career. I mean, it wasn't
Super Bowl ring. He was Eli Manning's backup on one of the Giants Super Bowl teams.
Yeah, man. So I think, like, for me, like, what's a good nickname? Like, I think the best nicknames describe either how you look or what you do. Like, yes, the ones that merge both of those are the best nicknames. That's why I thought like the round mound of touchdown, that was perfect. He scores touchdowns, round, we get it. Honey Badger had the little gold hair, kind of small, and then he was everywhere and didn't care who he was going against. Perfect. Okay, I got one. All right. Zachariah Branch, right?
Okay.
The remote control. Why?
Oh. He is the PlayStation player. Oh, yeah. Yes.
And the defense always loses him.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. You got one, Andy?
I've got a more literal one. Carson Beck, Georgia quarterback, the barber. So we learned when we talked to Cedric Van Pran last year, Georgia center from last year, that Carson Beck cuts hair. Like, they were roommates. Carson Beck cut Cedric Van Pran's hair. Cut his hair before his first date with his current girlfriend. Like, that's how much this man trusts Carson Beck's scissors and clippers. So that should tell you something. And then you got the dual meaning of he can be surgical. If we want to go Broadway, he can be like Sweeney Todd. He can slit your throat with the razor. Like, I think that works. So we got the barber for Carson Beck.
I like that
one. Oh, wait. Willie, I forgot this one. Doug Martin, former Boise State running back. The muscle hamster.
Man, make college football great again.
Oh, wait. Make Your Dream reminds us there is one really good one. Nash Hutmacher, the 300-pound nose guard at Nebraska. The polar bear.
Oh, yeah, that's cold. I like that. Literally, that's cold. I like that. Man, you know what? Okay, I got one more, right?
All right.
Barry and Brown at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
BB King, right?
Yep.
Because the thrill is gone. Boom. The thrill is gone. Barry and Brown, BB King. Yeah.
When we have Deion Walker on the show next, we're gonna see if we can incept that into his mind and see if he can take that back to the team.
Yeah,
and get and see if we can get. But Barry Brown and Dane Key, by the way, I'm glad you brought that up. Kentucky's got some dudes at receiver, like
they do.
Brock Vandegrift. If you're having a good season, you could have some fun with these guys.
That would be insane, man. I want to play with them. Now, I just thought about it. Like, man.
Oh, for on NCAA football. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to play with them. When you think about, like, Barry and Brown, like, every time I saw him, he was, like, making something out of nothing. And then if he did catch the ball in space, it was like trying to tackle a hamster in the phone booth. Like, it was hard. Then when you think about, you got Deion, you got my man Deion, like, and you could play him anywhere. Imagine picking him up, like, putting him at a linebacker, just sliding him back manually, and then just cramming the line with the guy that big. And then I forgot they got Pop Dumas too.
Yeah, they do. They do. And Chip Trainum is their number one back now from Ohio State and Arizona State.
Yeah, they got Trainum. They got another back too that was cold.
No, they were going to get Penny Boone, and then they didn't get him. He there was an academic thing, couldn't transfer there, and so he wound up transferring elsewhere. But yeah, you sent me last night. I do want to point this out because I'm with this one. Jackson Dart, the Ole Miss quarterback, Darty next door. Because everybody in the student section knows Party Next Door. So of course, like you could get some chance going. I'm all for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Then the quarterback is like the rock star anyway. I mean, Party Next Door is like the bad boy R&B singer. I think it's perfect, man.
So one we kicked back and forth, and I did not send this Instagram screenshot into River to put on the screen because I wouldn't do this to Dylan Gabriel. But Dylan Gabriel's girlfriend did him dirty because she gave him a nickname. So Zoe Caswell, that's the name of Dylan Gabriel's girlfriend, takes a picture of Dylan out in front of the Oregon football complex. He's about to go in for a day of work. It looks like he's got a pink drink from Starbucks, bottoms up. And the caption is just, "My pink drink, boy." If I were one of Dylan Gabriel's Oregon teammates, he would never be called anything but pink drink boy after that.
Man,
never.
Yeah, but Dylan, I'm here to save you. I got one for you. We're going to call Dylan Gabriel, not Dylan Gabriel, but Dylan Gabriel.
Like it. And one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football will be throwing a lot in that offense. So I think Bo Nix completed 79% of his passes last year in Oregon's offense. Dylan Gabriel is probably going to challenge that mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and then too, like, it's almost like the Gus effect, right? Like, Gus Malzahn, when he gets these type quarterbacks, he loves them because he understands the concepts. But for whatever reason, they don't always mesh the best with the offense. So now Gus has his type of guys that he needs at UCF. Like, he's got two now. He's got KJ Jefferson and Ja'Carri Brown. And now you got two of his former guys, Dylan Gabriel by way of Oklahoma, but he was at UCF when Gus got there.
Well, no, he was at UCF with Heupel.
I think that did he leave? Yeah, he when he got there, I think he left that year.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, see, he was there with Heupel, left for Oklahoma because he got injured the last year that Heupel was there. Yep.
I thought he got hurt that first year was good.
Groovy Co says murder Mertz. I like that. Well, look, it could be like a Kirk O'Chain situation, like Kirk Cousins with the ice. Like, you could have Graham Mertz. Like, you put some chains on him. You get him looking like a rapper, and he'd be game for it. Like, he would know how to play into it. Like, because like you talk to people at Florida. Like, Mertz is a dude. Like, the teammates love him. Everybody on the team loves him. He's not your typical, like, pretty boy quarterback. He's just not. So, like, this is a guy, he got hurt. Like, his season ended last year at Missouri because he dump trucked some dude and broke his collarbone. So, yeah, I think that would be Matt. I think Matt's being sarcastic. Back in the day, there was a dude that played defensive line named William Perry that was known as the refrigerator. Yes, we're old. We remember the fridge, who, by the way, would have been like an average sized defensive lineman now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, they got guys like he paved the way.
All right. Speaking of Clemson players, speaking of the Tigers,
great segue.
Thank you. I thought I was have to bring up Michael Dean Perry. So I'm glad we could do it with the fridge. But Dabo Sweeney was on SiriusXM's ACC radio with our friend Roddy Jones last week, or this week. Sorry, it was recorded at Amelia Island at the ACC spring meetings. And Roddy, who we're going to have on this show next week, had asked Dabo about Dabo using the transfer portal, because obviously that's been a whole thing where Clemson does not take transfers. This year, there were 4 FBS teams that did not take a single transfer: Army, Air Force, Navy, and Clemson. Now, only one of those does not require a congressional recommendation to go to school there. That would be Clemson. So here is Dabo explaining the lack of transfer portal use.
There's 3 types of players in the portal. I mean, it's really pretty simple. Most of the guys in the portal aren't good enough to play for us.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. I mean, we have guys that are backups at Clemson that go in the portal because they just want to have an opportunity. And most of them are graduates, by the way. But we have guys that are backups, or they want a chance to go play, and I got no problem with that. And so rarely do we have a starter leave Clemson. You've got the majority of the guys. They're guys that are in the portal because they want to have a chance to go start somewhere. Mm-hmm. They're not playing where they are. They're not good enough to come in and play for us. And so we'd rather take a good high school player, as long as we can get them, which we do, and you develop them. That's the first type. The second type of guy that goes in the portal is he's only going in the portal as a formality because the deal's already been done. Mm-hmm. He knows where he's going before he ever goes in the portal. So we're not getting that guy. Mm-hmm. And then the third type of guy is going in the portal just to see what he can get. And we're never going to win that war. So, we've been really fortunate because, first of all, we're established, been there 16 years. Mm-hmm. And we don't have a lot of attrition. I mean, we had 127 guys go through spring ball, and 125 are still on the roster, after spring, post-portal closing. So that's a miracle in today's world.
So when he says that's not a battle we're going to win, because that's who we're talking about. We're not talking about, like, Clemson isn't going to the transfer portal to build depth. They've got depth. They're going to the transfer portal, if they do it, to get a spot player to fill in where they have an immediate need. And that's the question. Like, the Keon Coleman going to Florida State after spring last year, like, Keon Coleman is that type of player that we're talking about, or someone who can come in and fill, like Caleb Downs going to Ohio State this year from Alabama. It would have to be somebody better than your current players, or as good as your current, your best current players. And what he's saying, there's 2 ways to interpret this, I would think, Dukes, like, and they're both financially related. Clemson's collective doesn't have the money to make a competitive offer to that type of player. That's one way of looking at it. I think the more accurate way is probably they have some money, but not so much that they could make a competitive offer and it wouldn't upset the pay scale of all the guys that they had retained.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the bigger issue. Like, they paid to retain guys, but they're not paying so much that they can really go break the bank on a transfer.
Yeah, and I think for the way that Dabo kind of handles his locker room, it's not a lot up front for guys who are unproven. But the promise is, come in, do what you got to do. You'll get an opportunity to play. You do well, I guarantee you, we're going to get you, like, you'll be okay. But if you bring in one of those $1 million guys or $800,000 guys, what does that say to the guys that you told to wait on your turn when the money, your spot that you were developing for, and you played a little bit? Now that goes to Caleb Downs. Well, that upsets your locker room. So I think in order to keep the culture there the way they have it, I'm not sure if Clemson has to. They can be a transfer portal player because of the way they teach it and the way they kind of set their culture. I just don't know. It doesn't marry up to what Dabo has kind of built. And go ahead, Andy.
Oh, so the problem is, and you're right. You're exactly right. That is what the issue is. It doesn't marry up because it kind of goes against what he's told all these guys that are already there. But here's the problem. You can't compete at the level they want to compete at without getting those types of transfers. You saw what Ohio State did. Like, Ohio State had good running backs. They got Quinshon Judkins. Ohio State had highly recruited safeties. They got Caleb Downs. Like, they are trying to win a national championship. Georgia had highly recruited receivers last year. They got Dominic Lovett and Ra Thomas. Like, they're going to do that. Texas went and got Isaiah Bond and Amari Niblack from Alabama. Like, they want to win national championships, and they're not particularly worried about people's feelings. Now, what we're talking about, though, we are talking about money. And like, the thing is, Texas can pay Isaiah Bond and Amari Niblack because Kelvin Banks is getting bank. Like, Kelvin Banks is being taken care of. That's their left tackle. He's probably the most important player to retain on this team. And they retained him. But he's probably making so much that when they go get Isaiah Bond at a market value price, it's not going to bother him.
Right. Yeah. And this is the other thing. Dabo's been there. He just said, what did he say, 16, 17 years?
Yeah.
He's probably one of the safest coaches when it comes to job security in all of college football. He's already delivered national championships. So he doesn't have the same, I don't think that he has the same amount of pressure on him as a Ryan Day does, where you can say, we got to go get Caleb Downs and we got to go get Quinshon Judkins. And if the guy who was supposed to be next transfers, so be it. If the guys who we had developing have to transfer, so be it. Do I think that it's a championship formula in today's day and age? Absolutely not. I don't think it's that type of formula. But what I will say is it works for Dabo. And by the time things change, as we alluded to earlier, I'll let you get to that point. By the time things change, it may shift back in his favor.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I hadn't thought about this until I was watching that clip last night. And then I'm like, wait, there's a path for Dabo to get right back in this thing. Because we've always assumed, oh, he's not willing to do it. But if it is truly a money thing, if it's either they can't afford those guys or they can't afford to retain and pay those guys without messing stuff up. If it's just money, well, they're going to be able to pay from the school very soon. When they settle that House versus the NCAA case, they're going to be able to pay from the schools. The schools will be sharing revenue. All of a sudden, Clemson's back in this thing, baby, because they will be able to afford that type of transfer. And if that's the case, watch out, because they already do have a lot of really good homegrown players. Like, they got a nasty homegrown D-line, and they're always going to have a nasty homegrown D-line. And I'll buy it. And now if you can add, like, where do they need help usually? Offensive line, receiver. If you can drop in that one offensive lineman or the one receiver that you need, all of a sudden everything gets easier for you.
And they'll be one of the few teams that have a consistent culture. So, and I think this, and let's just get crazy here. In the time where, so this kind of reminds me of when one and done came back in college basketball, and you saw all of these teams where the recruiting got so hot and heavy, you knew you were only going to get them for a year. And Jalen Brunson and Villanova and that team that they built were able to win the NCAA championship without the one and done type guys that had stayed and been there, because they were the best overall team. We saw eventually in college basketball, guys who had stayed and been together were the teams that became most successful. Then you saw more parity in these kind of I don't want to say thrown together teams, but the ones who had the best recruiting classes, and like the Dukes when they had Zion and they had Cam Reddish and all of these guys, RJ Barrett,
Yeah.
they didn't play as well when it got the crunch time. So now that you open up the playoff, maybe Clemson could become a dark horse if they get there, because they have a team that's been together for multiple years, that are used to the culture, and who don't have guys coming in that kind of upset that locker room, because everybody kind of knows what everybody is getting. And I think I think that maybe that bows in Dabo's favor. Who knows?
Maybe, because here's the thing: they're still good enough to make the playoff right now. Like they might be good enough to win the ACC this year. They're certainly going to be competitive in the ACC this year. And if they go 10-2, there's a good chance they're in the playoff. So we'll probably be able to test your theory, which I love. And you're right about the basketball thing. Like I covered that Villanova team when it won the national title. And now they were playing Michigan, and John Beilein was kind of doing some of the same stuff. But you're right. All of those one and done type teams had just sort of fallen by the wayside. The only really good one and done teams, like Carmelo at Syracuse, and that was before the one and done rule, the age limit actually happened. And then you had the Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, your guy Marcus Teague, you're an honorary Teague cousin now. That right. Team at Kentucky. So it's true. Like having guys that come up together, that know how to play well here. And I think that's also why in college football, you saw Stetson Bennett lead Georgia to 2 national titles as a quarterback. Like you still don't have to have like super elite first rounder to win a national title. Like you can't win a Super Bowl without the super elite quarterback. But in college football, if you've got enough talent around and a good culture, you can win.
Yeah, that team had a quarterback on defense. I don't know if you remember Nakobe Dean, where he grabbed.
Now, he was elite in every way.
Nakobe grabs Channing Tindall by the face mask and says, "Get over here." Or I don't know if the face mask or the collar, but he grabbed him.
Yep.
And on defense, tells him to get here, and then the next play he goes out and gets a sack. I mean, I think college football has so much more of that than any other sport, just because the guy next to you impacts what you have to do. And they're at an age where if you can create young leaders, it goes a lot further than it happens in the NFL, because in the NFL, all these guys were the guy. But on the college level, I think that when you can create leaders in pockets, I think it has much more of an impact than any other sport.
So Matt Long in the chat says, I don't think Dabo understands the definition of attraction or who to major this new age of college, or how this new age of roster management works. Clemson football has digressed. They have digressed. They don't have the freak receivers they used to have. They haven't had one of those guys since T. Higgins left. Like, think about the run of receivers they had. And it could be the highly recruited guys like Sammy Watkins, Nuke Hopkins. It can be the under-the-radar guys that they develop, like Adam Humphries or Hunter Renfrow, T. Higgins, Amari Rodgers. Like these were all studs at receiver. They have not been able to hit on those. Now, maybe that's Jeff Scott leaving to become USF's head coach. And Jeff's around now because he's not at USF anymore, but and I believe he's living back up in Clemson. So, there's a possibility that all happens again, but they've got to get that part straight. And whether that's out of the portal or out of high school and you develop them, you have to have dynamic receivers again. And for whatever reason, they can't seem to make them anymore. So that part has to be figured out. Everybody always needs help on the offensive line, except maybe one or two teams like LSU this year, Georgia this year. Maybe they don't. But everybody usually could use one more good offensive lineman. So if Clemson could just find a way to add, I'm just saying like 2 or 3 a year. I'm not saying wholesale. 2 or 3 a year. Some people, like people that you can vet who would fit into your culture, who are just really good players. Clemson is back in national title contention. If they won't do that or can't do that, they will never get back.
Man, absolutely. And then one of my biggest theories has always been the decline of Auburn and the rise of Clemson kind of coincided. And a lot of times those battles between Columbus or Central Phoenix City all the way back across East Georgia. When Clemson won those battles, then these guys who didn't go to Georgia, it was usually down to Auburn and Clemson. When Clemson won those battles, they were better. Case in point, Central Phoenix City had a pipeline to Clemson at one time, and they used to always go to Auburn. And Auburn fans were livid because how do you let these guys get out of state? Justin Ross, a couple of years ago, out of Central Phoenix City, was one of those dynamic receivers. Before his injury, he was on a humongous pace to be
destroyed Alabama in the national title game. Destroyed them. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, this year, Justin Ross went to Auburn and Cam Coleman. Central Phoenix City, same guy. Clemson used to get those guys. Like, they still got Peter Woods. Like, they were getting guys out of Alabama. Hugh Freeze, and I'm not being a homer at all. I'm just keeping it a book.
It's true. This is very true.
Keeping these guys in Alabama and Georgia's dominance, and Georgia going back into Georgia. A lot of times, like in here in Atlanta, they always talk about Georgia doesn't recruit Atlanta. Well, now they are. They're going to get the kids from the metro area, and these are kids who used to go to Clemson. Like Deshaun Watson, they're like, the biggest thing is Georgia didn't want Deshaun Watson, and he wanted to go to Auburn, and Clemson ended up with him. Well, what did that do for Clemson? Georgia's not letting these top guys get out of state as much as they used to, and I think that has a big thing to do when it comes to where Clemson digress and why, to your point, the transfer portal is going to be important for them to fill in these spots.
Yeah, and I think when the schools can pay it, I think Clemson's back because I think they'll have similar amounts. You just have to divert the money from somewhere else.
Right.
They've got money. It's not like Georgia money, but they've got some money. They can handle it. So that's going to be fun to watch. All right, one more thing I want to talk about before we sign off for the weekend. So one of our brethren in sports media took a new job this week. So Doug Gottlieb, you know him, you love him. He's got a radio show on Fox Sports. He's a former college basketball player. He played at Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. He was a very good player. He got hired this week as the new head coach at Wisconsin Green Bay. And you're thinking, okay, what's Wisconsin Green Bay? Well, it's a Division I basketball program, plays in the Horizon League, and it is the job that Bruce Pearl had before he got the Tennessee job. So, you can do some stuff at Wisconsin Green Bay. Doug is going to keep doing his 3-hour-a-day radio show while coaching the basketball team. And so this got me thinking about a couple of things, Dukes. First of all, we do shows. Can you imagine doing your show and then having to coach a Division I team?
No way. No way possible. No way.
Well, so I'm thinking about this more as a host than I am as someone who talks about sports. Doug has a national radio show, so he doesn't have to go super deep on every topic, but he does have to be somewhat informed on most topics. And usually, when you're a national radio show, you're going to talk a lot of NFL, a lot of NBA. The NFL playoffs are in the middle of his regular season. So is he going to be preparing for Oakland, or is he going to be watching the Chiefs and the Texans in the playoffs? I'm not worried about his performance as a coach. I'm worried about his takes, because Doug is known for the blazing hot takes. I don't know if he can get them blazing hot enough if he's not paying attention.
Yeah, and then too, when it comes to recruiting, how much of a hot take do you want in some things, right? Because your takes, those takes are really important to how people feel about you as a person. And so when you're recruiting, you don't want to, especially recruiting at that mid-major level, you can't afford to have a couple of guys who may be considering Wisconsin versus Wisconsin Green Bay because they like you as a coach, but the parent doesn't like what you had to say on a certain hot topic. So I think it's a really, really thin line to kind of travel, but I think it could be done. You see Coach Prime doing it out. You see Dion does everything in the world, plus Coach. I mean, Amazon and Fox had him out with Tom Brady and
he was at the upfronts yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, so I think it can be done, and I think the biggest thing is going to be delegation and creating that next guy who, if he's not there, not even figuratively, literally, if he's not there literally, but figuratively he's not there, can somebody pick the show up for him? And I think that's going to be important. Like every day, I don't think what people understand about what we do, you got, no matter what's going on in your life, you got to wake up and be here to do it. Like Andy Staples doesn't have to have a great night to have a great day on this show because he's a professional. But there are days that you may be mad as hell when you went to bed and you wake up mad, but you still got to come on here and joke and play and be same Andy Staples. Imagine doing that when your star point guard, Lord forbid, does something crazy at a frat house, and now you got to go on your radio show, and your team is in shambles. I hope he can do it. I'm rooting for him, but I think it's going to be tough.
I think the radio show is going to be the harder part. Like the coaching part might be like he may decide I love the coaching. That's all I want to do. Radio is done. But the radio, I think the radio, like, because I had a period in my life when I was, so there was about 3 months where I was at SI. So SI is my full-time job. And then now the radio show lasted a year. I had a daily radio show on Sirius XM, 3 hours a day for a year. And then 3 months of that year, I was also ghostwriting a book. So like I was a walking zombie the entire day, every day. I barely functioned. So I feel Doug Gottlieb. Like I feel what he's about to feel. I know what that feels like. And you're gonna have to pick one or the other, I think, just because you're gonna want some balance in your life. You're gonna want a little quality in your life. But it got me thinking, Dukes, like who in college football, what coach could host a radio show simultaneously? And you mentioned Coach Prime. I think Coach Prime's more of a podcast. Like I feel like like what Shannon Sharp's done with Club Shay Shay. Yeah. Like that's Coach Prime. So he doesn't, like Coach Prime wouldn't have to do daily. I think Coach Prime, because he could draw such quality guests, like he only needs to do one a week and just a very impactful interview that's going to go viral. Like, so he's actually perfect for that because he could still do the job. Now, if he would go to a recruit's house and do the interview there, it'd be even better.
Yeah, I ain't touching that one.
That's right. Y'all are best buds now. So, but that would be good. I'm trying to think because these guys are so siloed. Like they don't know what's going on in the world. Like, because today, prime example, it's Friday morning. It's 8:57 a.m. Eastern time. The whole world is talking about Scotty Scheffler getting detained going into the PGA Championship because there's like the police were investigating. Somebody got hit by a bus. Like a pedestrian got hit by a bus. Police are investigating, and I guess Scheffler rolled past the police when they told him to stop, and so they pulled him out of the car, put him in handcuffs, and took him to jail. And he's been released, I guess, now. But like, that's the sort of thing you have to be able to speak on, like right away. And I'm trying to think of like any of these major college football coaches. Like they wouldn't know anything about that. They'd have no clue it happened. They'd have no idea what to say. Matt Rule at Nebraska is the only one I could think of that actually might be able to pull it off because he does seem like he can talk about just about anything.
You know, the reason I'm gonna say this guy is because they're very active on Twitter, and that's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah,
I think Lane, he pays attention to everything on. Like I see him tweet so much, and in times where like you'll like even when you look at his likes. Like that's how you measure Twitter activity by what you like, and not what you tweet, but what you like. I think that Lane is going to be. He could be like a Jim Rome, like if he wanted to, like where it's like you want to hear what he has to say. He's going to say stuff that rubs people the wrong way at times, and he's going to do things his way. And he has a large, like pretty much base to speak on as far as his life. Growing up the son of one of the pioneers of football, being a head coach, personal life. I think he has enough to where podcast would be good too. I can see him on some Joe Rogan.
If Lane would do like the Howard Stern thing where he talks about his home life, like I'm in for that because I've seen those TikToks. But I don't think his personality is actually very introverted in person. He doesn't like to talk into microphones and so. Yeah, but
okay,
But the thing is, once he starts talking, he goes. So which actually is kind of like Howard Stern. Like he's a very introverted, like don't bother me kind of person. But when he starts going on the mic, he just goes. So like, yes.
What about Mike Gundy? How was
Mike
Gundy?
Gundy would absolutely. I think we know what kind of radio show that would be. And look, let's be honest. There's a lot of money in those radio shows. So I think Mike Gundy would definitely be able to pull that off. So that's tremendous. That's right. I think that's probably the list, right? Oh, yeah. I'll give you another one. Because this guy actually, it was his career ambition. It's what he actually went to college trying to learn to do, and he wound up in football coaching. Former Texas and current Florida Atlantic coach Tom Herman.
Ooh.
Also, Tom Herman wants to be a DJ on Sirius XM Fly, like on the old school hip hop channel.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, and would be like his selection would be good. He would. I think he could curate that playlist very well.
You know him?
Oh yeah.
Man, all right, Andy. We got to do when you bring him on. Please let me be there.
Yes. Oh, we had him on during spring practice, so we'll have Tom come on and we can talk hip hop with Tom, and you will be shocked because he leaned into it hard when he was at Houston, like Paul Wall, Bun B, Slim Thug, all those guys. Obviously huge in Houston, like Slim Thug and Ed Oliver from the same neighborhood. So they lean into that. He's leaning into Kodak Black now. And so I said, I was like, who's a Palm Beach County rapper? He's like, we don't really have Palm Beach County rapper. But we'll take Kodak Black and we'll take Ace Hood because there's one county down. It's fine.
Right.
So it would be an interesting conversation. But that's a guy. Now, I don't think he'd know anything that came out in the last 10 years. Good. But I think he would curate very well on the old school station.
No, nice. I like it. Okay. Tom, he's on my list now. I got to go check out Tom Herman.
Oh yeah. Oh, you two need to talk. You would get along very well. So
good.
Well, if there's anybody else y'all think would make a good football coach / radio host / show host, like I'm just trying to think, Dukes, the whole Gottlieb thing. Like, imagine I had to do this show or you were still doing your show, and they're like, "Hey, Dukes, could you also drive down to Macon and coach DBs at Mercer?"
No. And then especially too, man, think about this. At the level he's coaching at, he's got to develop guys. It ain't just, you're walking in and you got all of these guys and you just need to call plays and it's going to be run on cruise control. In order for them to be successful, he's going to have to do some hellified coaching. And I think, man, how even playing ball, even with your kid, when you're trying to get them to get a specific concept and they just can't get it, and they have to become a rep guy, which means where you just got to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And you know what you're looking for, and this guy just doesn't get it. Even though you can't show that frustration is still inward. It's got to go somewhere at some point in time. That frustration, you got to let it out. And then I think the hardest part about being the host, like I said earlier, is being the host every day. You got to be the host. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter if you're sick. It doesn't matter how you feel. You got to be the host. And I think, so the coaching part, like you said, I think being the host, the coaching part may be even more easy. But I just think having to be somebody, be quote unquote in character every day, that's tough, especially not just for a local audience, but for a national audience. Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's hard. Ryan says Mike Leach would have been a great one. So I worked with guys at SiriusXM who worked with Leach when he did radio. Not great on the radio. God bless him. I love Mike Leach. Not great on the radio. Would have been an amazing podcast guy, but hardcore history type podcast, 4-hour-long podcast. That's what you're getting from Mike Leach. He's just going everywhere. And so Leach and Coach Prime would be your podcasters. And we'll give Matt Rule and Tom Herman radio shows. And Mike Gundy. And Mike Gundy's making the most money of anybody.
Everybody. Yeah. You know how that show going. Right.
Dukes, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. All of you have a wonderful weekend. On Monday's show, big special guest, Luke Fickell, the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, will join us. You know we'll talk wrestling. And we always end up talking wrestling with Luke Fickell. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Monday.